is Matt Harris with Verato, and today we're talking to Paul Debrowski, global B2B manager at BigCommerce. We're going to learn about BigCommerce. We're going to talk a little bit about B2B BigCommerce, particularly B2B BigCommerce around mid-market, smaller to medium-sized businesses, how BigCommerce is helping out those companies. And I think we'll just kick it off and see how it goes. Paul, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Matt. This is exciting.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So, Paul, it sounds like you have quite a track record in B2B e-commerce and B2B in general. You want to just give us a little bit of your background?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Like you said, I'm Paul Debrowski, global B2B manager here at BigCommerce, globally responsible for success of our wholesalers, manufacturers, and distributors on platform, along with our agencies, and our technology partners. So right now we've got about 5,000 partners in network, and that's split pretty evenly, actually. So about 2,500 in that technology partnership side. Technology partnerships could look like ERP, systems, from the NetSuites to the Acumaticas, to the PIMs of the world, right? Or CRMs. And then our agencies, like the one that you run, Matt. Right now, we're serving about 150 different countries. BigCommerce is, and we've got about 10,000 B2B customers on platform with 1,200 plus app integrations. So, yeah, quite the footprint in B2B commerce today. Companies range from about 5 million in size to about 60 billion in revenue on platform with us today.
Wow. So that would be mid-market to enterprise all the way up to global enterprise, right? 60 billion is pretty big.
Yeah, and out of that cohort, really, we have a strong majority in that mid-market space, like you had mentioned there, and we're growing on the enterprise side and on mid-market for sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of platforms out there people can choose from. Obviously,
about
Shopify.
330 of them.
Yeah. I was looking at BuiltWith today, and it was like the biggest e-commerce platform, according to the BuiltWith data, is less than 2% of the entire industry. Shopify.
Wild.
So there's all these, non-platform, homegrown. I've been doing this so long. We were doing OS Commerce, Miva Merchant, ZenCart, like everything. We're just basically building e-commerce sites from scratch back in the day when I was working at Gateway Computers doing e-commerce in the 90s. So I've seen it change. I think one of the concerns, like this is one of the things we talk about a lot, is abandonment. Like if you're a mid-market, any kind of business, and you make a big investment on a platform, any platform, particularly an e-commerce platform, you want to make sure that investment's going to work for you for, at least 5 to 10 years. Ideally 10 to 20 years. So with all the churn in the platforms over the last 30 years, 20 years, I think it's the market's going to kind of shake out with maybe half a dozen leaders, maybe 10, and then you're going to kind of have to pick one of those flavors. That's what my recommendation is. What are you guys kind of seeing on your side?
Yeah, well, I think consolidation is bound, to happen here. If you talk about it from just the sheer amount of platforms and then non-platforms, so bespoke and the custom homegrown built, like you were talking about there, and talking about that for a second, like actually building. Now I'm going to predate myself to BigCommerce here, but the past 10 years, I spent building 2 successful companies in the B2B commerce space. I led a 12 billion, led an entity that was 12 billion in size through a digital transformation. And we had to go build a B2B marketplace before you could spin up a SaaS platform, an actual marketplace. Also before marketplace facilitator laws were even written, right? So I came up with Amazon, Wayfair, eBay, going through that when that happened as well for our B2B marketplace. And we had to spend a lot of money to go and do that, and then you had to maintain it, and you'd also worry about the customer experience and the compliance behind it. And today you have the luxury where you could subscribe to this and offload a lot of the cost that would be associated to it and a lot of the risk to doing so. So yeah, I think that from a tech perspective, tech stacks, have been largely ignored though from companies. I'd say that there's about 10 years of emerging tech that businesses have just negated. And so they're in this pre-cloud, pre-mobile monolithic era. That's what we're seeing. But now they have to take a company that's been doing maybe 150 years of traditional business and selling, right? And you've got a unique, sales team who lives in this offline world, but then their buyers are all online. That's what we're seeing. We're helping companies to overcome that quickly, to show that proven ROI as well, lower that maintenance cost for them, to allow them to become successful in a manageable way. Because this is all really overwhelming. Like you just stated, on the e-commerce platform side, you could choose from 300 and some odd platforms today. Which one would you choose, right? The luxury that I get to have though is, one, I've got the experience, obviously, for doing this at scale. I was also a builder operator myself, so I can really understand what companies are going through. But then at BigCommerce, we have the luxury now to say that we're a world leading B2B e-commerce platform and feed management platform. And, through accolades and also G2 ratings, you can find that we are prominently, a leader in the space. So we're working to actually not just help from a platform feature perspective, but to be a partner advisor in that digital journey, because
Right.
you don't go to school today for it, right?
Yeah.
And largely the other thing I see is that executives not only negating tech, emerging, so being in pre-cloud, pre-mobile monolithic state, having to now meet this B2B buyer that's digital and be digital first, really shift the business to become digitally enabled. We're seeing though, and I see this a lot, executives spend in the tech side, but they lack, there's a disparity in the spend they spend for their digital leadership, right?
Yeah.
And those days are actually starting to go by pretty quickly, where you just had a CIO who kind of mandated it all. Some of these companies we work with don't have that, right? And
Mhm.
their entire organization's responsible now for the customer experience and digitally enabling them. And that's actually better. That I'd say that state of, if you're a company that's in that state where you don't have those roles yet, you actually can form a culture of innovation pretty quickly. You're more agile to do so,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So it's funny. You said a lot of things there. I'm going to circle back and pick up on a few things you said and dumb them down a little bit, not because just to get some context around it, because you said cloud enabled. So just for the sake of the audience that's listening, if you're not super technical like Paul, basically older businesses had computer systems running their stuff. Like, where's my stuff? So inventory, accounting, parts, raw materials of their manufacturer. And those were great systems for decades. But then those systems needed to talk to systems outside. And they basically don't do a good job of that. And I would say the cloud computing revolution is now in its, getting into 20 years. So there's now an expectation of modern technologies being able to interact with other technologies that are also cloud enabled. And if you can't do that, you're going to suffer. So if you have like an on-prem older ERP system where like a DOS screen shows up and you're keying in things, you're probably behind on stuff. That's kind of what Paul is saying, not to put words in your mouth. So there's a revolution of technology that's cloud-based, which means it can very easily interact with other systems in the cloud that through APIs or whatever, connect it to it. So you have a monolith, which is like one piece of system that does all of your work, versus you can kind of decouple that, put it into a cloud, and have one system do your e-commerce really well, Another system handles your shipping. Another system might handle your accounting, et cetera. So this is where most modern businesses, even small and medium-sized modern businesses, are going or should be going. And then the SaaS model is software as a service, where instead of like installing software in your own office and running it and waiting for those updates to come, you're leasing a platform, and the company that you've hired to help you is doing that for you. They're keeping those versions update for you. They're keeping your site live for you. They're making sure your software works so you don't have to worry about it, and you can go on to other stuff, whatever's your primary function in your business. So, Paul, do I have that wrong? Did I, not to put words in your mouth, but we've had some feedback on the podcast, and they're like, you guys talk super techie, and sometimes like, like it. Yeah. So
I don't want to be classified super techie, maybe. So we can definitely shift this. I can make that adjustment here on the fly for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, so like my heart and soul is with mid-market. We talked about that before we came on. So small, medium sized businesses, some mom and pop businesses that are kind of in the supply chain, wholesale, distribution, manufacturing, B2B, right? And finding solutions for them. And sometimes the management teams and owners of those companies that are making decisions about how to spend money aren't super technical. They're sometimes getting up in age, and the business that you're used to running for the last 30 or 40 years had a certain way of doing things that won't really survive very well in the next 20 years. And I think BigCommerce, not to put has got some solutions that, like you were saying, make it a lot easier and faster for some of these companies to modernize their stack, much more so than it was, say, 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, lowers the cost barrier, but makes it easy and manageable to get your sales teams enabled, to get your businesses, enabled from marketing, finance, to the product side. And yeah, it's so important and imperative today. So, on a macro level, if you talk about businesses, traditionally selling offline, right, versus online. So globally today, we know that 17% of all sales businesses do go through online, right? But the growth at which online is growing is 8 times faster than offline sales. So wow. I couldn't stress this enough, right? It's not that offline sales aren't growing, but compared to online, we're going to see from now to 2030, the potential for B2B online sales to amass 40% of the pie. So you're talking about, quickly in our lifetime, seeing online sales even potentially eclipsing offline, right? And just this last year, B2B online sales grew a little higher than the projections. So it's growing at a 20% CAGR right now. Last year grew at 21% CAGR. And then if you tie what's happening with online sales, and like if your company are just like, do I invest in online digital channels? Well, I mean, maybe that metric doesn't get you alone. But if you look at what the buyers are doing, right? More buyers are online today. Like 75% of the workforce globally is going to be a millennial by next year, 2025. Right now, 2/3 of the buyer journey relies on a digital channel. So whether or not you know it or like it, you're in some form or state of digital transformation, from market demands, internally to externally now. And so you need to meet that demand, right? As a company, you're being asked now to shift from being a traditional business to being digitally enabled. When I started, like 10 years ago and all this, it was, the strategy back then was to be disruptive, be like the Uber, the Amazon of your industry. And foolishly, that was wrong, actually, now I could say, for many businesses. And that was detrimental. And this is why like 70% of all digital transformations that companies took failed, right? The stats were very high. In fact, I think now if we say digital transformation, that has some kind of negative connotation. So for good reason, right? But the strategy shifted. Like it's all about digitally enabling the business and having the right tools, having, the upskilling the workforce, at the same time creating a culture of innovation so that your culture can, bring through this ability to your customers constantly just delivering a better customer experience,
Mhm.
right? Well beyond a horizon of your own career now, right? And that's what culture of innovation is saying. But the tech side of it needs to come. Like you talked about, you've got to be able to, if you want to do quotes and orders and, actually execute on your experience that you're delivering to your customers, really execute and pull through deliveries, right? You need fulfillment and the logistics today. And as you get online, you need also to just secure data, right? And have accurate data. If you're asking to collect data from your customers, right, you want to make sure that you're protecting that, right? That builds customer trust and loyalty, we know. And all these things that they are being asked to do that are new to you, right? They're really simplified, in these commerce platforms when they're integrated properly. And you've got a great partner who understands your business, and can apply that technology on your behalf, and then help you with upskilling the workforce and train them. So that's where a lot of space we play in, not just like in delivering the tech. We're definitely innovative, but we play a partner advisor through that role, and our ecosystem as well does that. That's really important to understand, right? Like we make it
Mhm.
manageable for those companies who are new to online, who are struggling with this thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
We talk about stair stepping a lot because I think some businesses, you mentioned that 70% fail rate, which does not surprise me. I know in the ERP space, I usually quote 65. So like 65% of ERP replatforming fails. And, you know, there's a number of reasons that they fail, but probably the biggest one is the expectations of what is going to happen and how and when and how much it's going to cost are just wrong. Like they under budget. They take too big of a swing, so they're trying to do too much at once. This is what I've noticed. So with the stair step approach, it's kind of like, first of all, do your assessment, do a lot of talking and bringing teams together and finding out where your gaps are. So if your tech stack's behind, you probably have a human capital component that needs some training. So those things might have to happen in parallel. If you're bringing on new tech, you also have to be training people in parallel with the new tech. That has to be thought through.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of pieces to your tech. You might have a monolithic system that's going to get replaced eventually by 3 systems or 4 systems, depending on your size. So what's the sequence? What's the order of operations here? Which department is like seeing the is going to see the biggest reward for an investment, or which department is perceiving the biggest risk right now? So get those stakeholders involved in it and know who the gatekeepers are too. That's another part of the project, is like there's some people that are going to be resistant to change in that company, and there's some people that are going to be advocates for change, and you need to get those people on the same page. That's really important. It's a lot of work and it's complicated, but basically you talked about, decoupling. And the beauty of these solutions like BigCommerce is that you can put a BigCommerce piece in place, attach it to the old ERP, and then swap out 2 years later the ERP and keep your e-commerce head in place, and you don't have to do that over again. And that's the beauty of keeping these things separate, right? So you
Yeah.
don't have to do everything all at once anymore. You can do it piece by piece, but it takes a partner to kind of understand the challenges of a quote digital transformation, and then a practical and pragmatic approach to getting there. And our recommendation with on the agency side is to say, definitely try not to do everything at once unless you're a really small business. But if you have a larger business with 100 or more people and multiple departments, it's going to take some time to do these projects. And I think on the business side of things, you need to set aside a budget that you can apply to this on an annual basis. And it doesn't have to be some, massive capital investment all at once. It can be a gradual investment. There'll be times where some projects are going to cost you some money, but the point is to stay current as fast as technology is moving. You kind of have to keep improving and modernizing as you go and grow. And that's something I think some of these older businesses are not used to, that as a mindset.
Yeah. So I always like to equate this to working out. So if you have the expectation that I'm going to walk into the gym one day and do one exercise and walk out and I'm fit, then if you are applying that mindset to business, that I'm just going to maybe have the best investment, best strategy, apply it one time and quit, you're going to fail. And that's where that disruptive strategy, right? I talked about being Uber, Amazon. People got wrong. That's why they failed, because they took the transformation as an event, and it's not. It's you continuously going to the gym and one day getting fit. So we recently created a digital maturity assessment program at BigCommerce to be able to help with this, to be able to gauge where your gaps are. So we evaluate a company across 6 pillars, and then we help to work with you. And even the visionaries who are the digital, they go beyond digital leaders, right? If you look at a scale of digital maturity today, visionaries we put at the top, and Luddites, laggards, are down at the bottom for us. The visionaries, we found out by doing this assessment, actually scored weaker in data, in the pillar of data, than our digital leaders. So even our visionaries, who we look up to, right, as examples, aren't without having to continuously improve their business practices. So that's why you do these assessments. I have a corny little saying. I say, assess before you invest for success. That's best practice. We found 72% of businesses who regularly assess themselves. And I say regularly because, again, think about going to the gym, right? You want to continuously do this. So regularly assess themselves actually show to achieve better digital maturity, but also they grow more profitably as well. So if I compare digital leaders today, which we do, to the digitally mature, the digital leader to a digital laggard, we find that digital leaders end up 50% more time, right, achieving 10 to 30% more growth in revenue than their digital laggards. So your digital maturity today really impacts your business growth, right? And you'd be like, oh, Paul, well, you have to spend a ton. Well, our research actually shows us that no, you don't. We've got these efficient followers who take out of the box functionality or technology, get themselves started, and we call it a crawl, walk, run approach at BigCommerce, where you are actually prioritizing revenue generating, activities with features, say, that you want to marry up together. And then you look at improving customer satisfaction. So you put NPS scoring right next to it. And you start out with, cohorting your customers into a segment and finding out who's the, high touch, high revenue generating activities, where's low touch, maybe high revenue, and you prioritize in a phased approach. And we work with companies in best practice that way. But these are best practices that we've learned from now helping 10,000 customers and growing in the B2B commerce space, become successful. And you need a partner, one that understands your business, has the technology that can be applied to it, and then who cares, say, post-launch for that success, just as you do, and know that it's just a continuous effort. We will spend the majority of our careers actually dedicated to improving that customer experience. And in one way or another, it'll be through these digital channels for sure, right? And how they interact with us. I mean, that's just where the market is today. Your customers are online. If it's easier to go to a competitor today, and switch, they will. And we found too that B2B buyers are more willing to have a self-serve, sales process today online, like 92% of them, but 87% of them are willing to spend more for a competitor who has a better digital experience that meets their needs. 87% of those buyers would spend more with your competitor if they had a better digital experience.
Yeah.
That should shock and
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
folks to
We've
wake up.
seen that too. Like, not to, well, I'll name one name, SupplyHouse. SupplyHouse is a beast in the kind of, selling trades materials, hardware, plumbing, contractor purchases for home improvement stuff. And, we've noticed, they'll charge a higher price for the same product, but it's because the service. So someone like if a contractor is building a house or doing a bathroom remodel or new plumbing, they want to get all their stuff at once and they want to get it shipped from a single provider and they want to trust that that stuff is going to be available and they don't want to buy this part from this company and this part from this company. So, that marketplace approach is really effective in terms of giving a great customer experience. And at the end of the day, that contractor is going to add those as line items on his bill. So he just wants his service to be as high quality as possible. And if he had to pay 20% or 30% more for a plumbing part, the customer is going to cover that anyway for him. And what's most important for him and his customer is that he gets the job done efficiently and on time. That's the value proposition from his perspective. So the fact that he has to pay a little bit more for the part, when you add that up to the service he's providing and the cost of that service, that's a small amount to pay for the peace of mind of knowing that he's going to get his stuff when he needs it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, now flipping to the seller side, right? So if you're a seller and you've got a burden to your buyers, right? Like they have to be onboarded and that's done through some PDF today. And you literally are asking, your new customers to go through this terrible experience with you, right? Like, and to wait at that too. But, now I've got to be onboarded. That takes me like a couple days. Then I've got to be discovered by sales and then I have to be sold to. Customers don't want that. That's a huge burden to put on buyers today when they can go online and say, I can easily fill out a form online today. That all that back end stuff, I don't even have to worry about. They're just going to, validate my company and allow me now to purchase online. And I'm already shopping for the things that I want. I've built out a quote, right? I put my notes in there. I know when I'm going to receive it now. It's my pricing, right? And I can go ahead and check out. That's the difference maybe that you don't see is happening online today, but maybe your competitors are already offering that experience. Largely the companies we work with too are not transactional. Like a third of all businesses today that are just standing up their e-commerce shops, I feel like that's a misconception. I always have to clarify they're non-transactional or they're just trying to get quotes,
Yeah.
online today, right? Or their invoices, they just want invoices to be exposed, say the offline invoices, right? Or the offline quotes exposed to a buyer portal. And we do that today, in those little baby steps. And believe it or not, that's unlocking efficiencies for your own organization. We see that the sales get more time back. Finance does too. And these companies take and translate that into actually driving more future growth in terms of revenue for them, or they're actually spending time on the sales hunting, for net new customers this way. So there's actually a really strong trade-off to the outcomes that you get when you are digitally enabled, better customer experience, right? And more time in the organization typically.
Yeah.
And that's one of the number one reasons why companies actually are looking at BigCommerce, right? Is they have run into operational challenges. They got poor website performance issues, and they've got a poor customer experience they're trying to overcome. And that's where we step in and really help them out today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about this forever. I got, the one thing I think that maybe people listening to this podcast don't know, and I know a lot of e-commerce agencies don't know this. A lot of tech companies might not know this. I mean, I'm sure they do. You probably do because you've done your research, but there's still a ton of transactions going on B2B through trade shows and print catalogs and old business relationships that have no online presence at all. They're calling up on the phone and talking to customer service to make their orders, and they get their negotiated prices. And there's a lot of businesses that think, well, my buyers want that. They want to be able to call in on the phone and talk to somebody in customer service. And I'm going to tell you with a lot of confidence that they don't. They don't want to. They actually want to self-service their orders. And a lot of companies think, oh, well, I'm selling to this older business and the owner's in his 60s and he doesn't want to log into some portal and order. And I'm like, he's not doing the ordering, man. It's some 30-year-old kid who hates the fact that they have to call on the phone. So your audience is actually not the owner. It's the people that are actually working for the owner that are making the orders who are frustrated by the process. And sometimes that information doesn't make it to the top, but anyway.
Yeah, more and more that's the case today. Like, I always like to equate that to if you had to go and speak to the airline today, you're having a bad day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same reaction that, say, B2B buyers have today. They don't want to have to go talk to anybody. And if they do, they're having a bad day, you know, in this case. So we need to make it businesses need to make it as easy as possible for companies to spend money with them, period. Mm-hmm. And our philosophy really isn't in the area of telling you, that those old ways are old ways. Your customers are doing that no matter what, no matter if you hear it or you don't. Yeah. But our philosophy, though, at BigCommerce is if you are doing your offline, transactions, that you could surface them online today. So your invoices, your quotes, your orders, if those are living in some disparate, tech stack, whatever that looks like, we've integrated with so many systems, mm-hmm. old and new. Now, best practice isn't to do the really old, more than 10 years ago. Let's just call it that way. But we can, and we do. And you can then surface, orders, quotes, invoices, customer data directly into a modern experience for your buyers today. And you don't have to wait, and it doesn't have to be bloated, or you don't have to have, the most expensive, say, investments to do so today to get that experience. Yeah. So that's my piece on that.
Yeah.
For those that are listening.
In terms of the BigCommerce value prop, because I'm going to wrap this up a little bit, but the message I would say is, modernize your tech stacks, make sure your buyers can buy online. They want to do that. Even if it's not transactional, they just want to put through quote requests or see their order history or see their price books, whatever, like you said, crawl, walk, run, but get to that point where they can process orders themselves. With all that in mind, you want to summarize kind of where you feel like BigCommerce is. What's the elevator pitch? How can BigCommerce help out these businesses? What do you guys do really well that some other companies might not do really well?
Yeah, well, I think that at BigCommerce, what we do really well is we help companies become successful who are new to online today or who are digitally mature and growing. And so if you fall under those two areas, if you're a manufacturer or distributor, know that you're working with a world, leading e-commerce platform in B2B, also in feed management through our acquisition of Feedonomics, and that we care about businesses, period. I wake up every day, actually, and I love to go help businesses go through this. And it doesn't have to be a enormous, investment any longer. We've reduced that down so we make it manageable. We have really great partner ecosystem, probably one of the best in the game that you could dip into if you don't have a development team, but you would need one to help. And then we have great technology partners in that mix. So you don't have to be transactional today to get online either. And if you're looking to just get started, I'd say definitely just look at our digital maturity assessment as a great first step. Assess yourself so that you understand where the gaps are. And then our program is set up there, and that's all free. Whether you choose us or not, you can go through this program and find out what your maturity level is, find out where your gaps are. And then there's experts behind that at BigCommerce who are going to help you hold your hand through that process.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's the difference in BigCommerce, that we're looking at helping you from beginning to end. And end for us goes well beyond launch. We actually have a CSM team here that's focused on, after the fact with you, right? After post launch. That's most critical. It's like businesses, if you sell something to a company today, all the fears come after they purchase from you, and you're more likely to lose a customer after the sale than any time before the sale. So if you never want to lose another customer again, make sure you deliver and execute and surprise your customers post sale. Same with us. We have to make sure that you're getting adoption, you're getting what the value was out of it that you needed, whether that was to drive revenue or to get that ROI in the business. And BigCommerce is there anyways with the team, with the ecosystem to help with that. And then platform feature functionality wise, I mean, we've been innovative. You can find us on G2 as one of the leading B2B e-commerce platforms. I take G2 as the highest ratings because look at small business, mid-market, enterprise for us, and we sit in the leader quadrant. Those are actual businesses like yourselves potentially on this podcast who are going through it or gone through it and who have reviewed our platform and said that, we have made the difference for them, right? And that's why we're sitting in the leader quadrant. The analysts do say BigCommerce B2B is also a leader. So Forrester, Gartner, IDC, Trust Radius, they also rate us there. But those are analysts, those are folks that I respect in another way, but they're not building like you are a business and relying on a B2B e-commerce platform. Those folks on G2 are. So those are those two areas. And out of 330 e-commerce platforms that are accessible to the market today, there's this great guy, Andy Hoare, who came from Forrester as an analyst and started the Paradigm. And if the folks aren't familiar with the Paradigm, it's like the Olympics for e-commerce. The last 2 years, BigCommerce, and I'll end there, but BigCommerce B2B has been awarded the most amount of awards. It's like a combine in the Olympics. Most amount of awards in mid-market and in enterprise out of any e-commerce platform. And so 2 years in a row, we can say basically won the Olympics of e-commerce platforms with that.
Congratulations.
But behind that though is a success story for every business.
Yeah.
And that's, if you want to get more familiar with us, you can actually read real case studies. And if you find one that you like, I'd be happy to introduce you to any of those companies that you found interested in. Any of our case studies, most of those customers are referable and would love to talk to you too. They also, that's a great thing about our ecosystem. You might even see them at our shows or events. And if you want to know about events to get to, you've got one coming up, man, that I'm excited about.
Yeah,
manufacturers
October
and
17th and just outside of New Haven, Connecticut. Yeah, we're going to be talking the talk. Digital transformation. I hope you're there, Paul. I hope BigCommerce can present their value prop to the audience. Yeah, and I guess another thing, just to kind of wrap it up, like we talked about assessment before. Guys like Paul are here to help businesses. So like reaching out to Paul Debrowski, just do Paul Debrowski, BigCommerce. You'll find him on LinkedIn. It'll be in this podcast and the notes below the video too. But guys like Paul and guys like, we're here to help. Like at the end of the day, we want businesses to succeed. And, there's a wealth of information out there if you just go and grab it. And what you want to make sure before you make a major investment is that you've done some homework. So I'd say, reach out to Paul to find out more about BigCommerce and kind of some of the challenges of B2B e-commerce, because he's walked the walk. Anything else, Paul, on your side?
No, man. I think this is great. I honestly wish that the community existed like 10 years ago when I got started.
Yeah.
I didn't have anywhere to go or to test it out. And, that's why I talk about it so much now, is getting out there, getting outside of your internal walls and actually like expanding into these events into the webinars,
Yeah.
connecting with us. Like I'm easily accessible, and I do wake up every morning to go help companies. I love that more than I love the tech side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you never chose BigCommerce ever, like that's okay with me. I'm not here to sell you anything. There's a lot of people that'll sell you things. I just want to serve these companies better. So yeah, if that jives with you in the audience here, connect, really do connect. Hopefully you'll catch me at Matt's, event, right?
Yeah.
You have to tell everybody where that thing is. uh,
Yeah, we're getting the message out. It's a month away, but we're going to start cranking on that. But yeah. Yeah. And anyway, the big picture for Verado is that, we're like a community of technologists and business practitioners and service providers and business owners that are trying to help each other. And that openness piece is, I think, is really critical. I'm a kind of Gen Xer, kind of a grumpy Gen Xer, and I wasn't always like super open to exposing I think I've learned as I've gotten older and mellowed that everybody's welcome. Everybody has something to teach and everybody else has something to learn. And I think all ships rise. I think there's a ton of opportunity for small businesses and medium-sized businesses out there to kind of ride this wave of the next generation of manufacturing, which I think is coming back. I think companies like BigCommerce are going to really be helping businesses to thrive. So I'm excited about the future. And I'm excited to be able to talk to guys like Paul on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be in touch. BigCommerce, Paul Debrowski, thank you so much. This is Matt Harris with Verado, wrapping it up. Reach us on our channels. I think you guys all know how to do that. And take care.